All right, we're live here, Fox Sports Radio, Wisconsin. The Brewers have traded Freddy Peralta to the New York Mets with Tobias Myers for Brandon Sproat and then as well as Jet Williams, two of the top five prospects for the New York Mets. Hunter Baumgart here, Armin Sarian there. Might have people in and out here as we react to this news. Another significant off-season trade, Armin, where the Brewers
Yeah.
give away or trade away a significant piece of what could have been a 2026 rotation, and they get two players that should impact them well into the future. It's a classic Brewers move. I was hoping this time maybe they would keep him. It's only $8 million to pay him. It's really cheap for a guy who's going to be a top, number one rotation guy. We saw what he did
Sure.
last year. So that was my hope. But I get it. That's how the Brewers have to operate, and they did it again.
You know what, Hunter? It seemed to be one of those situations where the Brewers were kind of it seemed like we were kind of resigned to the fact that this was eventually going to happen just because of the situation the Brewers are in. And it's almost like the Brewers are in a situation where they have a valuable pitcher in terms of his ability and, of course, the low contract, where it's like you're going to get offers. You almost can't afford not to do it because of the way you have to manage your roster, manage your team, manage the market and the revenue stream. So it's one of those sad realities that it's like, yeah, we can't afford to keep the car. Like we had to sell the car. Like, we love the car, but we had to, almost one of those deals. And so, that wraps up a great career in Milwaukee. And then the first thing I think of is like, man, Freddie's had a great career in Milwaukee. He's had two really good peak years. He's had other years where he's been good, 2 years where he's been great, in my opinion. And he's been a great clubhouse guy and a great community guy, and really was a leader in the clubhouse for a while too. So, and he signed one of the more team friendly deals we'll ever remember a pitcher signing. When he first signed that early
Nice.
deal, and so you really can't ask for much more from him. And hopefully, hopefully the trade turns out well. I'm sure he'll have a good year pitching, and hopefully the prospects. I think we're cornering the market on great names. We have Monies, who we just signed Monies, right? And now we got Jet.
Yes.
And then this is the second Jet the Brewers have had in the last 5 years. Jet Bandy, remember Jet Bandy?
Yes. Yes.
So
They're bringing
I
the
mean,
jet
yeah,
back.
it's amazing how many Jets we've done. But we'll be on tomorrow morning on the huddle. I'm sure Billy and Drew will have a lot of reaction to it, especially. And but Hunter, I know you're breaking it down too, and you've been kind of watching this thing close. It seemed like the Brewers were at a point where they just weren't going to be able to turn down everybody's overtures, right?
Well, that's the thing. It was interesting because that report came out earlier today from Michael Marino that said the Brewers had, they wanted Jonah Tong, but then the Mets quickly ended those discussions, and then they went, okay, how about Sproat and Williams? And
Hmm.
Mets were kind of sitting on that, and they must have said, okay, sure, but we also want Tobias Myers. That's an interesting one too. He had a great couple of years, and you don't love to get rid of him. But I think that is a scenario where he obviously didn't have as good a 2025 as he had in 2024.
Right.
So I think that's a situation where maybe you say, all right, he might be on, we may have got his best years, kind of like you got Isaac Collins' best years.
Yeah.
And then, it goes the other way. We got some comments coming in. Andrew saying two prospects for an ace and a big league arm. Did we get enough? That's always going to be the question, right?
Well, it's a rental, and
You
it
could
was not. Yeah, you have to. Sorry to interrupt you, but it is a rental, and then you have to know that Stearns knows that with the Mets. So yeah, and like anything else, it's the quality, not the quantity. We'll all agree that they got enough of those turn out to be great players. You'd rather have two really good players than five average ones, right? I think that's how
Mhm.
that goes.
Well,
So
and one
yeah,
of the things that the Brewers had said throughout this whole thing, or reports had said that the Brewers wanted, that they had wanted an arm that was going to be able to be ready at the big leagues, and Sproat is that guy. I mean, he made four starts in September last year, a 4.79 ERA. You're not gonna, that's not jumping off the page. But he was the only Mets starter last year to hit 99 miles an hour on the radar gun. You pair him behind Jacob Mizorowski,
that's interesting.
isn't that so? I just think it's as much as, and we keep seeing baseball going, a lot of heat. And there's things to improve with him, obviously, with the 4.79 ERA and some other numbers. But I think that, and then Jet Williams is the quintessential Brewer. Now,
Yeah,
he went about halfway through the season through AA, did really well. Went to AAA last year, struggled a little bit. But the guy's 5'7", 175. He can play second base, shortstop,
Another small guy.
It's a Pat Murphy type of player.
Pat Murphy type of player. And in terms of the pitchers, it's not just the numbers. It's whatever the Brewers, brass sees in the ability, the certain pitches, the spin rate. There's a lot more specific metrics they look for. Quinn Priester's a great example. If you just judge them by just the numbers, what's up, Nick? Hey, Nick, and we got Big Bruiser in the house. If you judge them just by numbers, you wouldn't have thought much on the trade. Initially, we didn't. And it's always what the Brewers believe they can see a player being for them, not what their finished product is. They believe they can mold. So, yeah, that part's going to be interesting. The Tobias piece is interesting because he did have the step back year, but then his best year was 2 years ago. You kind of figured he'd be a big part of the puzzle. Last year wasn't, so you're like, what's left with Tobias? I went to see him in Nashville when he pitched for the Sounds, and I just happened to be there that night. It was one of those where I kept thinking to myself, well, we know Tobias has it in him somewhere to be better than this. And then he started to the end of the year a little bit, so I'm not really sure what to make of that. I'm not sure if we'll have another good year like he did 2 years ago ever again. Maybe he will. Who knows? But that's my initial reactions to this trade. And I'm just trying to find some Jet Williams highlights. But other than that,
Yes.
I'll let Nick talk too. I got to get. I'm sure we'll be all over in the huddle tomorrow with Drew and Billy. I'll probably leave in a few minutes, guys. I have to put my body down for rest.
Yeah, you got to get up early. So we'll listen to the huddle. Arvin and Drew and Billy will be reacting.
Good to check in, and I'll be watching the rest of this, guys, tomorrow morning. So good stuff.
Good. Thank you, Arvin.
All right.
5 to 8 a.m.
Go Brewers, and thank you, Freddie, for a great career in Milwaukee. He gave everything he had. Yeah, we appreciate that for sure. All right, boys.
All right, see ya. Sounds good. Yep. Nick Bruzowitz joins here, and Nick, your initial reaction, obviously, this is something that isn't a shock, but it was like one of those things where I'm like, maybe this is the year they keep him, like they did Willie Adames, and it isn't the case.
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about this the last couple of months on DND. I posed the question to Dave Gasper, who joins us obviously here now as well. Like, there was a hypothetical trade.
I cannot hear anybody.
We can hear you.
We can hear you. Okay, hold on.
Dave can't hear anybody, but we can hear him. Long story short, I mean, this was part of what we had talked about on the program was Sprout. I don't think Jet Williams was a part of our hypothetical trade proposal that we had seen. But it's always just kind of been the order of operations in Milwaukee, and I think Freddy Peralta is a hell of a pitcher. But if you can return future value, I just wonder how this factors into. Their process is status quo, operate as they typically do. To get future value, get a player that you can turn to in your rotation down the road. Jet Williams is a very highly regarded prospect as well, as a utility option on the infield. But like with a stoppage in next season's potential future, you're building out a roster for years down the road. I mean, now when if things become more equal, you're talking about a long-term controllable asset in Sprout as a rotation arm versus a highly paid veteran arm that you'd be putting on your salary cap if that exists. So that's a very interesting and certainly emotional night for a lot of folks. But I would be shocked if people are surprised by anything that the Brewers do in this regard.
Yeah, Dave Gasper joining us now as well. A couple comments quickly. Brian says, thanks, Freddie. I think that's a very big, a significant sentiment. He was here for a long time. Pat Murphy talks about how he's seen every single pitch that Freddy Peralta has thrown in the majors, whether it was from the bench coach or the managerial spot. And that's exactly what, that's Freddy Peralta was also a big leader in that, in that clubhouse, and that's something you lose. And someone asked here on the chat as well, asking if Woody becomes the ace. Woody is absolutely the ace of this rotation, and he's going to be kind of leading all the young guys. Follow me, guys. Jump on, jump up behind me, and we're going to, take on the NL Central. Everybody, that's kind of how it's going to be. Dave, your initial thoughts here as they get the 2 prospects back, and they also give away their trade away Tobias Myers as well.
Yeah, I think that had to be something that was the hang up for this kind of thing, because the Brewers were obviously going to be looking big here for Freddy Peralta, getting a major league ready replacement and Brandon Sproat, so that was a big priority for them. And then, I mean, getting also a big league ready, infielder, big league ready position player in Jet Williams. That was big. I was thinking earlier in the offseason potentially Luis Angel Acuna could make some sense, because he was an infielder. He's got some ability to make an impact with the bat, play a bunch of different positions. But he just got shipped out to the White Sox the other day, so he was obviously no longer an option. But for Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat, I mean, those are 2 of the top 5 prospects that the New York Mets have. And that may have been too big of a price to pay for simply 1 year of Freddy Peralta alone, even though it gives them the inside track for an extension for Peralta. So that's where I think Tobias Myers, his inclusion ends up coming into play here. I'm a little sad because I really did like Tobias. I really would have liked to see him get a better shake in Milwaukee, but it kind of seemed like this past year he fell out of favor there with the rotation. So, including him makes sense. I mean, the amount of starting pitchers that they have, Tobias was not likely to make this starting rotation, especially when you're bringing Sproat back in. So that changes things up quite a bit. But I really like the guys that they got. Jet Williams, first-round pick in 2022. He checks every box that the Brewers like to get. He's someone who plays up the middle. I mean, he can play short, second, center field. So he can provide plenty of value there. He steals a lot of bases. Very fast. He lives up to the name Jet. He's got a high on base percentage. His career on base percentage in the minor leagues, I think, is like 388 or something like that. Like it's something stupid, just something crazy with him getting on base. And he's a short king. He's 5'7". He fits in with the rest of the infield with Joey Ortiz and Caleb Durbin, all these guys. Like, he fits in perfectly with that group. So I really like getting Jet Williams here. I think he's a really talented player, 22 years old. And Brandon Sproat also. I mean, he's someone that can step into this rotation immediately. He got a big league cup of coffee this past year. He had 4 games with the Mets. He's got a 6-pitch arsenal, and he throws hard. I mean, he's sitting like upper 90s. And he throws 6 different pitches. Like, that is going to be incredibly fun to see Chris Hook work with, and what the coaching staff is going to do, because according to the reports, I mean, his fastball kind of needs a little bit, better shape to it, a little bit, maybe more movement. So I think they'll do some tinkering with him in the pitching lab down in Arizona, tinkering with that fastball a little bit. But he makes a couple of adjustments there, and I mean, he surely has the arsenal. He has the stuff to be a stud. And I think the Brewers will be able to turn him into one. So I'm really excited with what they got back here.
You were right on, though. 388 on base.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and that's the thing too. And it's never going to be.
Yeah.
That 388 on base, and like, you're never going to know right away, right here at 9:08 Central Time on the day that Freddy Peralta is traded. You're not going to know what the haul, what that's going to bear, right? In some respects, and a lot of respects, we're still finding out what the DL haul, Joey Ortiz haul, that for Corbin Burns is still playing out.
Yeah.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think you can call it necessarily you can define haul however you want to, but 2 players you got for a star player. And the same thing where you're getting 2 players back. And this time you did have to give up, obviously, Tobias Myers as well. But I think it's interesting where Sproat fits and how the Brewers look at this, right? Because you have a rotation and a pitching staff where you have a lot of depth, to be honest. You may not have a lot of like major league experience in that depth, but you have a lot of arms that can fill a 5-man rotation. And of course, you're going to need more than that with injuries and everything throughout a season. So you have that depth at a position. So I get it makes sense to make this trade. I just, what hurts me and I think will hurt a lot of Brewers fans, is the fact that you had 97 wins in 2025. You were one series away from the World Series, and then you trade for the future heading into 2026. I mean, it's just, I know that's how they have to operate, but and they've done a marvelous job. And so Andrew said on the text or on the chat here, in Arnold I trust. Yes, but they're I feel like it was this was one of those where it was $8 million, and maybe this is one you keep, knowing you had 97 wins last year and you're bringing the core back and everything like that. But again, I get it, but it just that's where I get a lot of Brewers fans. You knew it was probably coming, but you also had this little sliver of maybe this year they keep him.
Yeah, and a couple things on that. One, we're seeing all the smoke the last couple of days about the Dodgers and Freddy Peralta. I'm almost more relieved that this is not the Dodgers, because as tough as it is emotionally trading Freddy Peralta, I think it would have been much tougher to swallow if they had traded him to LA. Given all that the Dodgers have done, seeing what the Dodgers did to you in that series, and then giving them Freddy Peralta, that would have been a really tough one to swallow. So I'm relieved that it's not them. But at the same time, and as you mentioned here with the depth and the rotation, and Peralta heading into his last year, I mean, I saw John Heyman talk about this a week or so ago. Freddy Peralta had been trying to talk an extension with the Brewers for 2 years, and the Brewers were not talking with him about it at all. I mean, there was no traction. The Brewers did not seem interested at all in signing Freddie to an extension. So he's gone after this year anyways, right? So all you're going to get is a draft pick in return. And as much as I love draft picks, as much as I love, getting an extra compensatory draft pick right there, Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams are going to be far better, far more impactful than that draft pick. And they're going to be able to make an impact right now. They're going to make an impact starting this year. So I think that's really kind of the important part. So as much as it does sting emotionally, because we all love Freddie, I mean, just having watched him pitch here for the past several years, his smile, can get everyone's smile going. It's just, he's such an important part to that clubhouse, a leader in there. But you do have Brandon Woodruff coming back. That does make it a little bit easier that you at least have some veteran leadership in that room in the rotation. I'm still worried about how many innings Brandon Woodruff will ultimately be able to throw this year, as I think the Brewers should be. But you have him at least still there as a potential leader. You got Mizorowski, Priester. I mean, it does open up a spot for another one of these young arms that they really want to get in. Logan Henderson, Robert Gasser, probably chief among them. But it opens up opportunities for all those guys. Brandon Sproat, I think, will be in that mix as well. So you were losing him after this season, and you're only getting a draft pick. And getting these guys back, that's far better than any draft pick they could have gotten.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, you're definitely not, and who knows what you would have gotten maybe at the trade deadline anyway. And then you're most likely. I mean, if the team performs how we think it's going to perform, you're going to be in contention anyway for that. Nick, any more thoughts from you?
No, I mean, I think a lot of people will look at this move and think that the Brewers are essentially, willing to risk not being as competitive this year. And we see countless comments coming in. One guy in particular here on the Facebook, Michael, saying, they're not going to win 30 games. He's certainly reaching for, the extremes.
Didn't we say that last year?
But there is always going to be concern when you give up a player like this, and the front office certainly operates with blinders on in that regard. They do what they believe is best for this team, first and foremost, for the longevity, and of course also for this season. And Jet Williams, the only concern I would have there is it's the same gripe that people have had with truly every new face that they've put in this lineup for the last couple of years. Okay, where's the pop? Where's the home run going to come from? It's not going to come from 5'7" speedster, right? Who can play second or short, right? It may be outfield for Jet as well. He's truly a guy.
He did hit 17 homers last year,
right? And
across Double A and Triple A.
I just think people, and you guys certainly cover baseball at such a high level. You recognize so many different levels of value, and I'm not questioning people who watch baseball casually, but when people don't see 40 next to someone's name, they don't think they can hit home run, right? They think that, hey, this guy is going to be another one of these guys that's going to have to play Murphy ball, that's going to, play such a fundamental brand of baseball that we have grown accustomed to over the last couple of years. And people turn their nose to that, but it won 97 games last year. And I'd imagine that they're feeling confident that whoever they bring into that clubhouse is going to fit in and be able to do what is asked.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, part of it too. The clubhouse
I think it's interesting.
See, this is a part with the lag or something that we got here. But yeah, it's a big part of it is the culture. I think that the Brewers, like to have their clubhouse culture. They talk about it quite a bit. Pat Murphy talks about getting the right people. He tells us that all the time, having the right people in there. And certainly, I haven't heard anything bad about Williams or Sproat in terms of character. They're still kind of young kids, so they're still certainly moldable. So I don't think there's going to be any sort of concerns there. But yeah, you get the right attitude. You get them a chance to play, and I think that's going to be a big thing for some of these guys too. Because Jet Williams is coming up as a shortstop. He's looking at the New York Mets roster, and he sees Francisco Lindor signed for the next decade. He's not expecting to be playing shortstop anytime soon. So he's going to be like, hey, there's a potential opportunity to play every single day. And I think maybe, as much as there's an opportunity at shortstop for Williams, I'm very intrigued by his ability to play center field, which is what they have been having him do quite a bit of. Because in center field, you're looking at Blake Perkins and Garrett Mitchell. And, Blake Perkins, defensive wizard, offensively, not a super high ceiling with Perk. Garrett Mitchell, super high ceiling offensively, if he can ever be on the field. When we see him on the field, he can be great, but we just haven't been able to see him on the field consistently. So this provides, I think, another really good, strong option to put out there in center field. And that could be his long-term home, because you look at the other shortstops in the system. You got Cooper Pratt coming up. You got Jesus Madej, who's just named the number 4 prospect in all of baseball by Baseball America. You got some future there in the middle infield. And Jet Williams, he now just adds to it. So, that's where I'm kind of like, I want to ask you guys, like, what do you think of the middle infield, basically depth that they've got now, and just kind of almost a crowded mix there too?
Which is good, because I think it adds to it. Now, I do wonder with Jet, since he spent the last half of the year, I believe last year in AAA, I would think he would start the year in AAA, but maybe a Caleb Durbin situation where Caleb Durbin came up, half 3/4 of the way through April. I wonder if that's, or maybe a little later for Jet. Just kind of depends on the injury, on the situation, obviously, of the infield, and what you have there, how Joey's performing, how all those guys are performing, and how they kind of line up everybody.
I think when you look at
what
people wanted from this offseason from the Brewers, they were wondering who that next piece would be. And if a guy like Andrew Monasterio needed to be on your major league roster, and I would argue now you have positional flexibility with a guy like Jet. It just depends on if they deem him a guy that needs to be in there regularly, right? That's the concern with any young bat making his major league debut, if they're going to get enough reps. So we'll see. I'd imagine he fills the hole for them on their major league roster, but that depth, as Dave mentions, you really can't go wrong with the options that they have on the infield behind their regular starters, or if they want to roll the dice on a young gun that clearly has worked in the past. You named Durbin, Terang the year before, or 2 years before, I should say. They found ways to get these guys in there and become quickly effective major league players.
Yeah, that's something. That's something too. With this group and Andrew Monasterio, I've been saying all offseason that I think the Brewers should have gotten themselves, or should look to get themselves, some veteran infield depth. I wanted a little more depth in that infield on the 40-man out. Siegler, I wasn't really super convinced with his performance And Monasterio, I think he did really well in his limited opportunities last year, and I think he's a solid utility guy. But I would have liked, some extra depth there on that infield. So I think getting Williams is going to help provide that. And maybe he starts the year in AAA. He played 34 games in AAA last year and hit 209. So not super great with that performance, but he was able to slug pretty well in AAA Syracuse. So we'll see. And I think spring training is going to be a big determining factor for that too. If out in spring training and he just dominates, then I think they're going to be inclined to put him on the roster. We may see where they try him positionally if they want to make a position change, like, hey, you're playing entirely in center field, or you're playing entirely at shortstop. I think those are going to be some things that we'll see fleshed out over the 6 weeks of camp, and where they decide to end up going. But I don't think we can rule out a start in AAA. But I think he's not going to spend the entire year there. I think we're going to see him at some point, likely early this season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. All right, we got some comments here rolling in. First, let's see. Ben says, Burns left and got hurt. Sometimes you have to accept in a smaller market. You can't pay big and risk injury. So, yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, well, and you're definitely not – you knew you weren't going to pay Freddie. Like, that was for sure, as you mentioned earlier, Dave. Since that was the case, it's the reality of baseball, and who knows what happens after, next year and all the negotiations and everything. But as of now, this is how baseball is. And as much as it hurts, and I know, I think a lot of people understand it, and the way the Brewers have basically perfected it makes me, get excited about these trades. There's a point, I think, where a lot of us were like, oh man, like they just traded away a star player and who knows what they got back. But now it's like we kind of look at it, we go, all right, these guys could fit in. We kind of see the vision. We've seen it work time and time again for this team. And so that builds confidence as a fan, even if your name player does get traded before the last year of his deal.
Yeah, and you talk about an arms race with the Mets too. I mean, they're going all in. The Dodgers were, the team that everyone had a gripe with, and the Mets have done it a little bit more conventionally. I would argue. You look at the contracts that they've signed; they don't certainly add up to what the Dodgers have put pen on paper with. But they get Devin Williams. They've made this trade for Freddy Peralta. Marcus Semien joins their team. Bo Bichette. The Mets are trying to compete as best they can. They got the money. They have the resources. It's nice to see that maybe not only the Dodgers are going all in. Those that are familiar with my background, certainly frustrating to see my major market team, the Cubs, not make moves to act like one. But when from a Brewers perspective, the hypothetical trade we talked about on DND months ago, and it was some of these familiar pieces. I think Sproat was part of it. I don't think that Williams was part of it. But, it was a thought back then 2 months ago that we touched on this and said, that if that came across Matt Arnold's desk, it'd be hard to decline. And it looks like something similar did. And he said, yeah, absolutely. He smashed the accept button. Hypothetical, of course. I don't think he has an accept button on his desk, but maybe.
Yeah, he texted it to David Stearns. He texted accept on there with probably some sort of GIF or emoji. Yeah, that they send across. But yeah, I mean, this is a trade that it makes so much sense. I think these two sides as trade partners. I had been talking about it for weeks. Not only on D&D, talking there, but also on Brewers Daily on YouTube, which I'm going to have a banger of a show on this tomorrow on Brewers Daily. But I've been saying, back then that I think the New York Mets line up as one of the better trade partners for the Brewers on paper with what they had to offer in terms of young pitching talent and some infielders that would intrigue the Brewers. I thought they made the most sense. And sure enough, that's what ends up happening here. So, getting Williams and Sproat, these are two guys who are going to help out right now. As much as we kind of look to, it's like, this is kind of, it's like, yeah, you're trading away from a big league team. It's not going to help you win. It's only going to help you in years in the future. These two guys can't help right now. So I think that's important. And And like, I don't know, like, I know you guys were talking for like a couple of minutes before I logged on here, but the rotation depth that they got, even though you're sending out 2 and you're getting back 1, like, let's run down the list of names here. We got Woodruff, Mizorowski, Priester, Patrick, Logan Henderson, Robert Gasser, DL Hall, Aaron Ashby, and we got Sproat now, and then Coleman Crow, potentially there, and Carlos Rodriguez. So 10 and 11 kind of fringe there, but still, you got like 9 legit starting pitching options on your 40-man roster that you can go with that could make this rotation. That's a pretty strong group.
And that's why this trade makes sense in that you traded away a player in a position that had a lot of depth in, and it's not necessarily major league, like guys who have been there, done that, like Freddie, but there are a lot of guys that have a ton of potential. And so you're going to see what kind of potential they have. And this is how the Brewers have won. They've won with younger guys. At one time, Freddy Peralta was the Logan Henderson. At one time, Aaron Ashby, it's Aaron Ashby was the Chad Patrick, whoever, compare the young to the old, but that's how the cycle has continued for the Brewers. And so that's where this trade makes sense. And that's why throughout this offseason, I've been like, yeah, this is probably going to end this way just because of the depth they have. If if this was a different position, if it was third base, something, right, where you had not a ton of guys behind and surefire guys, I think that type of player where he was going to be on an expiring contract, maybe you do keep him. Like, obviously Willy Adames was a type of guy you keep there. And at the time, you were still trying to figure out, Joey Ortiz and everything like that. So I think now you say, okay, we've got some depth. Brandon Woodruff I would think, obviously, Brandon Woodruff will be your opening day guy. And I'm excited for that. I mean, just because I love Brandon Woodruff and him being at the top of the rotation, that's the thing too. That's where him coming back was so incredibly important. And I know they paid a price for him, but boy, because he's going to be still huge in that clubhouse. I heard Sal Frelick interviewed the other day on the Baseball's Dead podcast, and he was saying how big Brandon Woodruff is. I know Sal's not a pitcher, but Woodruff is so big and just giving advice to everybody. He's going to be big in that clubhouse even more with Freddie gone. And he's going to be the guy that just everybody's going to watch and take after. And I definitely don't mind that with Woody and so that's a big reason why I think as well they make this deal is because they have a veteran who can right now step up and be that number one guy.
Yeah, if Woodruff left, I've got a feeling this trade probably wouldn't end up happening. Getting him back is so important. I mean, when he returned to the mound last year, that kicked off the first 11-game winning streak, and then they had the 14-game winning streak after that. They went 30-4 in the first 34 games after Brandon Woodruff came back. I mean, that's remarkable. We kind of tie it to Andrew Vaughn because he came up at the same time, but Brandon Woodruff was a major part of that as well. What he means to the clubhouse, that group, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, but having Woodruff there, Peralta being a pitcher and making that move versus Willy Adames, as you mentioned, Hunter. Willy Adames they kept until the end because I think because he was a position player, and there's considerably less risk with the position players than there is with the pitchers. And Ben, I think it was that commented earlier about Burns leaving and then getting hurt. That's exactly why that's exactly why the Brewers do not pay pitchers long term. That's why they were never going to pay Corbin Burns for an extension. That's why they were not going to give Freddie an extension. They're not. Freddie's been reliable and healthy for the past several years. Great. You know who else was? Corbin Burns. Corbin Burns was as reliable and healthy as they came. Never had an arm injury. And then he hits free agency, signs his big, massive deal. 5 starts into his first year of the deal. There goes the elbow. And, then he's out for a year and a half. And the Brewers see that. In terms of pitchers, there are 2 types of pitchers. Guys who have had major arm surgeries and guys who are going to have major arm surgeries. That's it. Those are the only 2 categories. If you haven't had it, you're going to at some point. So holding on to those guys long term and signing him for probably $30 million a year it just wasn't going to be in the cards for the Brewers. They just can't take that kind of risk on an arm like that. You can be willing to take it on a position player, but with pitchers, it's just so tough to. So that's why you're never going to sign him, and that's why it made so much sense to trade him now for that full as much back for him as you can. And I think Matt Arnold did really well here.
I got to part guys here in just a moment, but I just want to say this. I mean, Jacob Mizorowski, fastest all-star ever, a guy that everyone had uber belief in for the majority of his first season last year. You know, who's to say he doesn't take a step up and become one of the most elite pitchers in all of baseball? I know Freddie's one of those guys that you've grown accustomed to because he never misses any action. But he's a really good player, and eventually he was going to leave. If you can get value in return and Sproat becomes a guy that you rely on for years to come, and Jet Williams is a fixture, these are risks that they've been taking and they've been panning out. So you roll the dice, you look forward to the future. I think this shouldn't tarnish anyone's excitement for the upcoming Brewers season. Doesn't change much anything except every 5 days there's a different guy on the mound. But that's been their reality for a long time. The last couple of years, they've seen so many different guys go out there and so many different guys deliver. So my parting thoughts on this is it's exciting. I'm one of those guys that gets fired up for moves. I know it's a little different coming from my perspective, but you know, Freddie's one of those dudes that you find yourself looking back on fondly, but recognizing hopefully down the road that you got a lot. You guys will keep digging into it. Our MLB insiders here on our iHeart network. So I appreciate that. But we'll touch base down the road. I would say parting thoughts. It's an exciting night for the Brewers.
I like it. Thanks, Nick. Good to see you. Yes, we will
See ya, fellas.
see you soon.
Talk to you tomorrow, Nick, for basketball.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Okay. So before we hang things up here, let's run through just a rapid fire of comments. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. What's the love affair with Peralta? He isn't a number one pitcher. Guy rarely can go 5 or more. His ERA is good, but inning per game sucks, and he never was clutch in the playoffs. He is okay 2 and good 3 on good teams. Okay. So a couple things there. One is I think he was incredibly reliable and did incredibly well. It's hard to be as good of a pitcher in Major League Baseball as Freddy Peralta was. Now, is he top of the line, number one guy? Like, is he, in that tier 1 of Major League Baseball pitchers? You could obviously debate that, and the pitch count, the 5-inning, 100 pitch, that I saw some people commenting that is also something you have to take into consideration. And probably obviously something that teams, if they're going to sign him to a long-term deal, would take into consideration. But it is hard to find a pitcher who has been as consistent as Freddy Peralta has been, and obviously healthy, knock on wood, as Freddy Peralta has been. So that's the thing. And of course, it doesn't hurt that he's a great guy in the clubhouse and with the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. There certainly is the criticism about pitch efficiency with Freddy Peralta. And I mean, it's certainly justified. There's certainly a lot of frustrations with some of those games where it's like, okay, 1 inning in, like he gets the first 2 guys out, and then, next thing you know, it still somehow ends up being a 20-pitch first inning. It happens so many times. And I get it. I think Freddie did have, some of that up and down nature to him that maybe prevented him from being a true ace. I mean, he was the de facto ace for the team, especially once Corbin Burns was gone, Woodruff was hurt. He was the clear top guy on the team. But I think Brandon Woodruff, when healthy, I just think Woodruff's better. When he came back, we saw him be incredibly efficient with his outings. We know that he can be that guy with efficiency. So I think that's a big part of it here too. And it's certainly a very good point. And Freddie did have his shortcomings, but still a very, very good pitcher.
That's the thing. Let's see. Brian says, is that the full package confirmed? Yes, it is. It is Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers for Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat. And Jet Williams, 2 of the top 5 prospects in the Mets system. And then Tobias Myers goes in. I do wonder, that report earlier today from Michael Marino saying that the Brewers had sent an offer saying, they wanted Sproat and Williams for Peralta. I wonder if at that point the Mets said, okay, throw in one more. They threw in Tobias Myers, and that's where, that's where we sit now.
I wonder too, because Michael Marino, first of all, had never really heard of him. He says he's a national MLB reporter, but I can't recall him putting in where he writes for.
No.
So who is he a reporter for? So that kind of made me, have some pause on the validity of that report. So I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. But sure enough, I mean, it seemed pretty clear. And Jonah Tong was one of the names that the Brewers had asked for, but that was quickly determined to be a no. So it's like, okay. But still.
With just quickly on the Michael Marino thing, I'm with you. Like, I was questioning it all day. I'm like, is that really, but then, how this all went down, it does make sense. The fact that Tobias Myers was then included in this, it does make sense then, okay, maybe they didn't want 2 prospects, and then they said, okay, throw in one more. Because, and that's something the Brewers, haven't always done, is thrown in someone with an expiring contract. It's been, if memory serves, Hader for whoever Josh Hader got, and then Corbin Burns for whoever, right? If memory serves.
I believe so.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how it's been in the past. So it's been so they kind of added a little something to get those 2 prospects, and we'll see. Let me see here. Is there Patrick?
And also I will add that, Sproat and Will 100 prospects. Yes. Corbin Burns, like DL Hall and Joey Ortiz were not top 100 guys. Like Baseball America just put theirs out today, their top 100 list. And Williams is, let's see, he was 71, and Sproat was 81. So you got 2 top 100 prospects added to the farm system here. Although they're going to graduate very soon, but yeah.
Couple quick things. One is our guy Andrew Ludwig is covering the Bucks for us tonight, and he said that Pat Murphy's in attendance and got a loud pop at the game, which is fantastic.
Dude, everyone loves Murph.
It's just how can't you? Also,
did you see his videos at his tour stops in Green Bay where he's FaceTiming Joey Ortiz in the sauna?
Amazing. Just amazing stuff. I hope and saw him, because he is just a treasure.
Yeah.
One more thing. This was from this is interesting too. This is actually from Michael Marino, who we were just talking about, but he said 2024 wild card game 3. We all know the ending, but the 3 players who pitched for the Brewers, Tobias Myers, Freddy Peralta, they're all Mets.
Oh my God! Why isn't Pete Alonso a Brewer now?
Pull it all full circle, and Pete's signed with the Orioles this offseason. Well, Dave, I'm glad we could do this. Glad we could hop on and do a quick reaction, because this was fun. We'll try to do this more often, especially as hopefully as the season draws closer and whatnot. But definitely, you've got your Brewers Daily coming up in the morning, so everybody make sure to subscribe. We've got, of course, the Fox Sports Radio Wisconsin in the morning, both on 1070 in Madison and then on 920 in Milwaukee. You've got the Huddle. Drew, Billy, and Armin will be all over this from 5 to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Available on the podcast. Just search the Huddle. So, Dave, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's like we should do this on the air. Do this more often or something.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's great to talk baseball. It's great to have moves to actually talk about. It's all winter, it's been basically nothing. It's like, yay, Akil Baddoo, let's talk about. Yeah, now we got plenty to talk about here. So very, very excited for that. And we'll see if Matt Arnold has anything else up his sleeve this offseason. I still think they could use another right-handed reliever. So we'll see if they make any more additions here.
That's a really good point. So yeah, we'll see if they do, and if they do, you can find us right here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're finding us. Absolutely. Now we appreciate everyone's comments and everyone viewing tonight. Have a wonderful night, everybody.